All right, I'm here with Shakespeare and the Skeleton Gang.
My first question, when I realized the band name, I had to ask myself, where did that band name come from? So where did you guys come up with that band name?
Well, Shakespeare is just my name, obviously. And the Skeleton Gang came about when I was resurrected for an umpteenth time and came to this timeline. And I realized that playing on the streets was not going to do it. I needed to fill some theaters and halls. So I searched for many, many years to find some suitable musicians. And I came across this guy who was working on his mechanical components while playing at a ragtime piano. And I figured, he's the man for the job. So I bought him some grease from the bar and oiled up his joints for him and said, would you like to come and play piano with my band? And I told him a story of a man called Dr. Skinner, and that ended up being the first song that we wrote together.
With a name like that, Shakespeare and the Skeleton Gang, before I heard your sound, I was thinking The Cure, a little bit more gothic sound, and I was surprised at the sound you guys had. Now, I want to see if I can pick up all right, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm hearing a little bit of Tom Waits.
Mm-hmm.
The Cramps.
A little bit, yes.
And a little bit like 50s rockabilly, Stray Cats sound. How close am I to that?
Very close. Tom Waits is definitely a strong influence, as is the older folks, so, like Screamin' Jay Hawkins, those old voodoo rock type fellas. As Shakes has a wide range of classic blues players that he likes to listen to. We also like newer bands like Coolio. Jack White is obviously a massive influence in terms of the idea of just getting out there and making the loudest noise you can possibly make. But there are other groups that we take a lot of inspiration from. We like the big band era. The classic big band swing era is a thing that we all love. I listen to a lot of They Might Be Giants, and so character and narrative are things that are constantly featured in their work. But Tom Waits really is, I think, the central point that brought us all together, where we were all saying, we want to do this thing. This is the idea.
If you look at my notes, you can see that I wrote They Might Be Giants in there, because I was going to sting you guys with that. I was like, guys, have you guys ever heard of They Might Be Giants? Because I definitely heard They Might Be Giants.
We did see them live last year.
Yeah.
I saw them twice in a row. I actually got free tickets to They Might Be Giants
because I had emailed their sax player with an arrangement of one of their songs that I had made when I was about 14. And he gave us free tickets to come and see the one we played. And so that was a nice experience. We got to meet him.
All right. When it comes to the rockabilly sound, where do two guys in Australia that are younger than me, I remember the rockabilly sound when I was growing up. Where does the rockabilly sound come from? Where did you guys get your inspiration for that?
Oh, it almost goes to, as Tinker said, going to your influences as Jack White Clay, and also looking at who influenced them.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at of course, Led Zeppelin, your Rolling Stones, the guys who influenced them were Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and then going back further than that, Robert Johnson, Peter Wheatstraw, those characters. And yeah, definitely, my parents were big Elvis fans. Mm-hmm. And leaned a lot into that. And funnily enough, I think in Australia in the 1990s, there was, funnily enough, a bit of insurgence of like rock and roll and rockabilly sounds. There was even that television show,
Little Elvis Jones.
A cartoon. It was an American cartoon, right? Well, it was set in Australia and had Australian voice actors.
Was it really?
Yes. That's amazing. I didn't realize.
I've never heard of that cartoon, so it must be us.
It was one of the cartoons that was on in the early 2000s that we would have been kids watching. And definitely there was also rock and roll, the rockabilly influence in things like the Wiggles and... No, Hot Potato is straight up a 12-bar. It's quite funny. It's actually not a 12-bar. It's like a truncated 12-bar.
Yes.
But it definitely uses the potato up, dum 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 dum. It's, yeah, the Wiggles are interesting. For me, a lot of the rockabilly influence that I had in my life growing up came from people like Muddy Waters and Stevie Ray Vaughan and George Thorogood. These are the blues bands that my mother would really enjoy. But also the Beatles, which of course were born out of sort of rockabilly and skiffle, and famous for elevating. The Beatles were synthesizing a very large number of sort of things in the air at the time into a very, very directed and clear final idea, I think is what the Beatles were doing. And so a lot of my early exposure to that stuff was from listening a lot to the Beatles, which I think actually are quite good, contrary to popular belief.
Well, the amazing thing about the Beatles is when they were playing strip joints in Hamburg, they were playing for hours and hours and hours per day. So by the time they made it back to England, they were such good musicians because they were doing 8 days a week to borrow a Beatles song in Hamburg. And so when they went back to Liverpool, they were like the tightest band around, and they were just better than everyone else and could write music better than everyone else. So yeah, practice makes perfect, as they say, and the Beatles had that.
Definitely, we found that in our own experience as well. Like the lineup of the gang is a little different to what it is when we started, but just being in the same environment, but playing together, and even playing, we've played 3-4 hour shows. There was a period before COVID where we used to do a lot of them. We were functioning almost entirely as like working corporate musicians in a sense. Corporate is the wrong word, but we were doing places like Greaser and we'd play 3 hour, 4 hour shows there. COVID came through and killed the funding for everything Sabbath.
The only 4-hour show I'd ever been to was Ween. They played a 4-hour show, which was their country music album that they did. And it was something else. I was really high. But it was... I've seen Ween twice, and I only made it through half of the gig the second time because I knew they were going to play for a long time, and I wasn't as high. So I made it through the first Ween concert. Didn't make it through the second Ween concert. Great if you ever do want to see a great live band, go see Ween. All right, I want to talk about one song specifically that I really liked. Drills and Engines. Tell me what that song's about, because I really, really love that song.
Funnily enough, that was a song that existed before the band, and it was a song that that he wrote before we met. And when we were going to record the first album, we were looking for material, and we decided, here's an old song that hasn't really been played a lot. So we took it and we decided it needed a little bit of tweaking in the lyrics. We changed the lyrics fairly substantially, although the theme is the same. The original version of Drills and Engines was written in, I believe, 2012 when I was about 13 years old. And the chords structure was still basically the same, and the chorus was still there, but the lyrics, they're a bit directionless. You can't get very interesting stories based on life experiences when you're 13 years old. And so Shakes really is the one who gets the credit for developing it into a proper narrative, which I think is the most strong part of it now. We did take, obviously, it's a little bit of life experience on my side, going into an eons deep mine. But also, I thought to get some of the language, if you have any literary fans among your listeners, you might recognize some of the terminology from a novel called The Silver Chair from the Chronicles of Narnia. That was definitely an influence as well. Also, the chorus this has been pointed out several times, and I realized it when I wrote it as a child. The chorus is exactly the same as Dumb Things by Paul Kelly.
I think that's my favorite song that I've heard from you guys. Really, really love that song. Okay. Have you guys always been attracted to sort of the darker music? Is that like when I was younger? I really loved Elton John when I was a kid. I was born in 1973, so I was in the heyday of Elton John. I remember Elton John very, very specifically to some of his early stuff, is his disco stuff and his pop stuff. So have you guys always been attracted to darker music?
I think Shakes has more so than myself. They Might Be Giants were my love as a teenager. Jonathan Colton and They Might Be Giants, the two granddaddies of American nerd rock. I'd say those two sometimes have a bit of darkness. Yeah, a bit of cynicism. They're very lyrically dissonant. These are both artists that have very bright and poppy sounds and consistently talk about very dour and depressing subjects. But Shakes really is the person with
the traditionally bleak sounding.
I certainly appreciated a lot of heavy metal, Black Sabbath, and Metallica, and Motorhead, which can have dark themes, but again also Tom Waits, Screaming Jay Hawkins, and in particular shout out to C.W. Stone King, who is an Australian Americana musician, as odd as that may sound. Yeah, he explored those kind of things, and definitely gothic, not sort of horrific to the point of revulsion, but definitely exploring the darker recesses of the human soul.
This is the Halloween episode. Growing up in Canada, Halloween was a big deal to us kids. It was mythologized a little bit as children because we really loved Halloween and we really loved the experience of Halloween. But now, growing up in Australia, Halloween wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. It's definitely getting more commercial now. What is your relationship to Halloween? What do you remember from Halloween growing up as kids?
Oh, I certainly never got much in the way of Halloween around my house, but it was there were definitely things that came up in school or in community spaces. Yes, it is getting a little more of a following now, and you're quite right. There, people want to reject it as an Americanized holiday.
That was certainly the feeling on the ground in the 2000s, if I remember correctly.
Which is absolutely not true. You might as well throw out Christmas for the same criteria. But it's been I think there is documented history of Halloween parties being celebrated in Australia by Irish immigrants in the 19th century as well, in the mid 19th century.
I remember many families when I was a kid. Some of the children in my class would go out on Halloween and go trick-or-treating. The one time I did as a child, none of the houses that I went to even knew what the hell was going on. It was very confusing. And therefore, I think that Halloween is, for me, associated purely with doing Shakespeare gigs. It's the time of the year where we get a lot of work.
It certainly is. Nowadays, with the advent of social media, there is a bit more of a sort of community springing up where people will share, these houses are actually participating in, these are the ones or communities that you can expect you'll have a good time to a trick-or-treating. But I think I definitely gravitated more towards it as an adult, where it is less about trick-or-treating, whereas many people will throw costume parties or go out to clubs, to bars in costume, and I always appreciated it a bit more than Christmas, because it feels more about your friends rather than about family, which I know is a bit of a sore point for some people.
It always surprised me, the Halloween thing, because Australians love a dress-up.
Certainly.
When I moved here, I was astonished at how many dress-up parties that I went to. Again, we only have one dress-up party a year, and it's Halloween growing up back home, so there are multiple dress-up parties here, so I was always a little bit surprised that the Halloween wasn't a bigger thing. My father-in-law just put up a sign in his front yard, "We do not celebrate Halloween," so which I always thought was a bit of a killjoy thing. It's just kids trying to, just get free food, really.
Yeah.
That said, I suppose if you were out trick-or-treating and you saw that sign, you'd know to give the house a wide berth. And in some ways, there's okay, I won't waste my time with this then.
There's also no, it was really more of a pagan festival, as in its early origins, and hence why it kind of got a little, demonized by certain religious groups. Not in Australia as much as, say, the United States or Canada, where certain people certainly do get very up in arms about it. But yeah, I think in Australia, at least, it was very much just that sort of rejection of wanting to be too American, while people drive their Fords and eat the McDonald's and use their iPhones, etc. But we can't have Halloween. That's too American.
All right, I want to talk about Schrodinger's Blues. What a guitar solo on that song! So, who is responsible for that guitar solo? And my God, shakes you shred on that song. Well done. That's one of my favorite guitar solos I've heard in a long time, so congratulations on that one.
Thank you very much. Yes, that you can definitely hear the Jack White influence on that particular track. It's got a heavy fuzz, it's got an octave effect on it. But that was, we knew we'd have a quote unquote traditional blues song on the front album, and again a strong narrative, and it was essential. And allowing Tinkerer and Connor, the con man at the time, who was our sax player, to get to show off their chops a little bit. And I prefer to leave my solo till last because, didn't want to be too showy, but I was happy for it to end the song and just, have not be too self-indulgent.
All right, we're going to listen to Schrodinger's Blues Net. So, let's give it a spin right now. What else should we know? What else should we know about the band? You guys have any gigs coming up? Tell us what the world needs to know about the band.
Yes, we will be playing on October the 31st at Arcana in Maruka in Brisbane. Tickets are still available through Eventbrite. Doors will be opening at 6. There will be door prizes for the best costume. If you still have no plans on Halloween, by all means, come along. We are also planning on releasing a single at that very show, which is a song called Come Down Big. A song we've been playing live for a while now, but we've just now laying down on the record. So if all goes to plan, we will be releasing that on the same day.
And before we go, I want to hear, what is your favorite Halloween movie from you guys?
A little bit of contention.
That's really hard. I'm trying to think if I've even seen a Halloween movie.
Well, it doesn't have to be like Halloween, the slasher Halloween franchise.
Yes.
But like, what genre of scary movie would you say?
I'd have to say probably Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. I would say not his strongest film, but I think it's a bit. Nightmare Before Christmas is also good, but Corpse Bride was, I think, the first Burton film that I watched when I was young, and it definitely stuck with me. And just the stop motion and the way that all the songs are written, and particularly all the comedy and the design of the characters and the entire world. Yes, really quite stuck with. And also some fabulous voice acting and some performances as well.
And thinking about it, I'm realizing that I don't watch very much stylized gothic horror. Interestingly enough, considering that I'm in this band, I watch a lot of science fiction, so it's hard for me to pinpoint a Halloween thing. So I'm going to say, not a movie, but an episode of a TV show, The Adventures of Lena and Woodley, which was a very, very well-received Australian comedy show to slapstick comedians, Colin Lane and Frank Woodley, who, to this day, some of the most popular Australian comedians of all time. And they had an episode in their TV show called Tonight You Die, which featured them renting a horror movie for Friday the 13th, not Halloween, which goes to show you just how little cultural stock Halloween had, because this is an episode from the 1990s. And that episode, their one horror episode, where they had a spooky day of the year, was not Halloween, it was Friday the 13th. Which gives you I think that's a good illustration of how much cultural brain space Halloween had in Australia at the time. But that episode is absolutely hilarious. It has one of my favourite jokes of all time, which the joke style, and it's been in many different things, is someone explaining something very important to another character. And as they explain that thing, a loud noise covers what they're saying the entire time. It cuts off exactly as they finish. You know the kind of joke I'm talking about? Yeah, it opens with that joke. And so, what's not to like?
We do a Bram Stoker's Dracula on Halloween every year.
Really?
Because Keanu Reeves is awful. And I love Keanu Reeves, but he is so miscast in that.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, and it's so stylized and beautiful, and all the clothes are all Japanese because the costume designer was Japanese. So it's such a beautifully stylized movie, and so that's the movie we watch, or try to watch every Halloween.
Cultural hunger.
Yeah. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you very much. I'm going to share all your social media on our Instagram. So if you like They Might Be Giants, The Cramps, even maybe some Violent Femmes, Tom Waits, absolutely, this is the band for you. So thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.